IRS to speed it up a little bit. Okay. All right, so what are we doing now? We have a group of public policy students who, just like they helped us last semester, they're talking to land trusts and they're helping us think about best practices. This is a great project for them to learn public policy. And they're looking at resale formulas. They're looking at that land management question. We wanted to think about if there's a piece of land that's prone to flooding, is not right for a house, could it be a community garden? Could it serve some other civic purpose? So they're going to look at those. Workforce sourcing guidelines around that equity and inclusion. Have other land trusts done that? How did they do it? Should we ask the city if they'll think about an expedited approval process so that maybe we get to jump to the front of the line when we have a property ready, since it's so important to provide people with housing? That training of the boards and qualifications, incentives. So we have a group of students that are going to spend a couple of months looking at best practices and give us some ideas of which of these might be the best way to go for Rocky Mount. And that, again, will be up to the board of directors. Okay, so this is just an example. Everything I'm going to show you is just examples from here on out. It's not set in stone. So this name, we came up with this name as a placeholder. You may hate it or love it. It's just a placeholder. Restoration Rocky Mount, a neighborhood land trust for the Rocky Mount Metro. And an example of a board, many land trusts use this example. They have a large board, 21 people, that's in 3 different layers. One layer are people that buy houses that belong to the land trust, so they're homeowners. One layer are other community members and city representatives, neighborhood association representatives, community development corporation representatives, people in the community with housing experience, a real estate person, people local who know the market, who know housing, who can contribute. And then the other layer are people from the community as well, who are finance experts, construction, banking, development, philanthropy, legal. Any of those services you can get pro bono or to at least help with other professional services you want in that third layer. You want people that can raise money. You want people that can walk in a room and say, we need another $1 million so we can do 5 more houses. So you need those folks on it. So you've got 21 people, 3 layers, and then you just need to balance that out so that you've got different people serving a term. They roll off, there's an election, other people get elected, people roll off. This keeps the control moving through the community. It allows you to bring younger people into the process so that this continues on and is sustainable. So this is typically the way it works. And we'll know a little bit more when we look at some other land trusts, whether there's some other options for that. So the other part of the process, as far as the business plan, is looking at what's out there, what properties out there, what houses could be renovated, what houses could be taken down, like where would this land trust start? And then, what would make sense as far as how to work it in the community and where to get funding. So we've put together some preliminary plans that the students last semester, and Allison really, with another student, designed some of the technology behind this. Next. So we looked at some properties. There were a number of properties purchased about 4 years ago by Self-Help Community Development Corporation in Durham. If you know Andrea Harris, and Jim did not tell you that he serves on the governor's task force named after her, which is focused on equity in terms of economics, environmental, social. So he's on that governor's task force. She worked at this organization. They picked up quite a few properties here that they had a goal of wanting to provide housing. So they've been holding them and waiting to see what's happening with those. So some of those, it's possible we can negotiate with Self-Help and have them either give some property, or if they've already done some improvements, purchase it. at a good price, but essentially they have the same goal as the land trust. There's some city-owned properties that we've looked at. Again, we could ask the city, maybe it would be in your best interest to donate this to the land trust, then you don't have to mow the grass and worry about it, and we'll develop it. Those are the two we've looked at. We know that there's absentee landlords. We know that there are people who've passed away and their heirs own the property. We know there's lots of other options, but we started with these two because they were kind of right in front of us, and we found a lot of properties. But we'll look at all of the other ones as well. And so what we did was we created a GIS system, which we'll show you, and we went out and looked at the properties. We looked at what ward they were in. We looked at their FEMA designation. We kind of said, if it's a 6 or above, flood might be an issue. We don't really think we could take that on. We may have tossed them out for that. Looked at the sidewalks to see what condition they were in, looked at the house that was on the property, and did an assessment. Allison did that. She and another student drove around Rocky Mount. You can go to the next slide. And we did that with the city properties as well. And we even found one that might be the headquarters for the land trust. And we put them together, and we'll pull that up in a second. We put information about them. We created property cards, and we put them in groups. We called them clusters over 7 years. So the goal is, in the first year, we want to do one house. And I know that we already had some people say one house, but it takes a while to build a house and get all the approvals. We want to show that as a proof of concept that the land trust can build a house. But we want to use that labor and that talent from Rocky Mount. So we can't just flip and make sure that we've got a lot of minority business enterprises that can do that work overnight. So we've got to build that part of the equation as well. Because again, we don't want to bring people in from the outside to build the house. So we want to put all that together and say, this is how we can do it. And then in the next years, we would build more and more properties as it became more proficient at it. So we put them in clusters. And we also thought it would be good if you built them where possible adjacent or in a neighborhood, because then when you drive through, you could say, that's our land trust, those 3 houses, and it makes a lot more of an impression if you have a couple of houses together as opposed to one here, one here, one here. Can't necessarily see the effect as well. Next. So we have property cards where we have the land value, the property value, the zoning, the lot size. We want to make sure that accessory dwelling unit works, what ward it's in, what county it's in, what the flood factor looks like. So we did a card on all of the properties as well. Well, we didn't, Allison did. Next slide. So we can click to those. Okay, well, we'll come back to those. We'll go through and then we'll come back. And we'll show you how we have them in the system and you can click on them. That's fine. Go ahead to the next one. We're going to do a video too. So let me pick back up with kind of how everything gets done with the land trust. So we've talked about these professional services that support the land trust. And there's a lot going into this. There's that procurement, getting those businesses ready with the contracting. There's the financial side. So we thought there's this accelerator. So we thought, well, this is a service we could offer to the neighborhood associations. So if you're with a neighborhood association, you can let us know what you think of this. But we know there's neighborhood associations that want to tackle projects in their area. And we know there's one that already has done it, renovated a home and flip it. And the land trust could be something that could help those neighborhood associations. So it could help support the legal side, help point the neighborhood association to the people in those trades, help with the financing, help raise money for it. So we're kind of thinking the land trust would be doing it, and it could help those neighborhood associations. There could be other entities. There could be faith-based leaders that want to do that, buy property in their neighborhood and want to do that. We could offer those services to them so that we have everybody in terms of liability kind of under this umbrella. Next slide. Next slide. So there's other things that the land trust can do beside those services. It can do home buyer education classes and financial training. Banks love to do this. They also get CRA credit for it. We can team up with them. You have a CDC. You have other groups here. You even have faith-based members who have done this type of training. The land trust can team up with them. It's not reinventing the wheel. It would be partnering with these entities. It could provide loans for repairs and energy efficiency, much like you see some of the federal programs. In Baltimore, there's a land trust that provides grants for improvements in neighborhoods. So the land trust could raise money and then work with the neighborhood association if people had small dollar improvements they could make, and it could provide grants. So there's lots of options. The accelerator, community gardens, healthy aging options with those accessory dwelling units, and again, I'll talk about the child care piece. So this is kind of what it looks like in our minds, is that you have this neighborhoods management piece that helps the neighborhoods, and they're collaborating. That might be building jobs in those neighborhoods around these trades. You've got the land trust, and they're working together on training and services. And then the land trust is tapping into all these different finance options, New Markets tax credits, CDBG, different forms of investment. You've got a trades accelerator, and then you've got all these other functions. And you'll see this other box in here that says repair 6 schools. Because along the way, Dr. Johnson discovered that we have a lot of delayed maintenance on schools, predominantly in low-income neighborhoods, and these schools are sick. They have bad air quality, they have bad stuff in the walls, they're situated in bad places, they've been hit by hurricanes and haven't been renovated, and counties are sometimes strapped as far as facility money to improve those schools, yet our kids are back in school in these school buildings. So we thought, you know, we could also look at some of those buildings and how could that trades accelerator support more jobs. So you hear about the green economy, fixing up these buildings. We can take those same minority business enterprises and put them to work on those 6 school buildings so we can have a complete cycle. All right, so accessory dwelling units, I mentioned those as supplemental income, you know, possibly in-home child care, increased housing options, senior care workers. One of our ideas is that we accelerate home-based child care by working with some individuals who are experts in culturally based equity child care. We train people in the community in home-based child care so that it's not just what we think of now as home-based child care, but early childhood education. So we put them through a training program, and then we give them extra wages that rewards them for that early childhood. So we start to build a base of really good early child care in Rocky Mount. And then we can use that with these accessory dwelling units. This is, you know, an accessory dwelling unit would look like the house. So if it's a colonial style house, it would be a colonial style ADU. This is a kind of a more mod one, but this is what it looks like, separate from the house, living area, kitchen, bathroom, 800 square feet, like a studio apartment, which that studio apartment in Washington, D.C. would be $2,500 a month. So you would have people who'd want to live in these. Next slide. Talked about the community gardens. If there's some land, we could work gardens. You've got groups that are involved in nutrition and food. You've got Reverend Joyner with Kanita Family Life Center. How can we tie that together with some of those pieces of property that aren't right for housing, but could be great for food? Bee friendly. We've talked about how could we connect Rocky Mount to the Bee Highway that runs through RTP. That's also a very profitable enterprise. And I've talked quite a bit about the Trades Accelerator and the home-based childcare accelerator. So these were basically add-on ideas. I know it's starting to get big, but it's like once we started going, we started thinking about different things we could add, which make Rocky Mount unique, which makes funders want to fund it because it's unique and it's different and it's tackling a lot of different areas at one time. So that equitable childcare, again, having individuals go through training, they get certified from the Keenan Flagler Business School for early childhood